the field, open adoption was not really a common thing. And she saw the need to have an agency that truly believed and supported the concept of open adoption. And she started our agency in 1985. She paved the way for healthy communications between adopted parents and birth parents, which has served the best interest for thousands of adoptees within our community. So welcome, Maxine.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Rosalind Davis. Rosalind is a self-published author of I Am Precious, I Am Loved, a children's book that speaks to those affected by adoption and foster care while celebrating all family types. She is also an adoptee who uses her platform to support the adoption and foster care community. Welcome, Rosalind.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
And then we have Terry Crossan. She and her sister Kristen adopted through Adoptions from the Heart, and they recently opened a nonprofit thrift store called Heart and Sold in January of 2024. Their goal is to give back to foster and adoptive services based in Delaware County, PA. So far, they have been able to donate a total of $16,000 and more to their 4 mission matches, one of which is Adoptions from the Heart. So welcome, Terry.
Thank you.
And then we have Sierra. Sierra is a birth mother through Adoptions from the Heart who placed her son for adoption in 2016. She is a huge advocate for open adoption, serves as a positive mentor for other birth mothers, and is a proud supporter of our monthly birth parent support group. Sierra also sits on the board of directors here at Adoptions from the Heart. Welcome, Sierra.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we get started with our panel discussion, just a quick reminder that tonight is a fundraiser event. Please know that all donations received tonight will go directly back into AFTH's programs and services. We encourage everyone to donate. Our goal is to reach $500. There are a few ways that you can donate. You can go back to your welcome email that you received with the Zoom link for tonight. There should be a link in there. You can also follow the instructions on the screen, and you could check out the link that should be in the chat box that one of our staff members will input. We also will have a raffle at the end of tonight's presentation. You can purchase your entries through the registration page listed in your welcome email. We will be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card for the lucky raffle winner. There is still time to purchase your raffle tickets. Entries will close at 7:45 p.m. If you do have any questions throughout the event, please feel free to input them into the chat box. Our Adoptions from the Heart team will do our very best to cover any questions that people may have throughout tonight's class. Okay, so let's get started with hearing from some of our great panelists. Our first topic is going to be in regards to your journey into adoption advocacy. Adoption advocacy is important in raising awareness about adoption. By advocating for adoption, we can help shift societal perspectives and eliminate misconceptions and stigma associated with adoption. Now let's turn to our guest panelists. So we are going to start with Maxine.
Okay, hi.
Hi, Maxine. So can you start from your perspective, what it was like as an adoptee and what inspired you to create our agency?
Well, first I was a social worker in Delaware County in the adoption department, and I did a lot of searches. We would have birth parents come and want to see their children, and the children come and want to know who their birth parents were. And that was really moving. And it also seemed to me that they should have somehow known each other or had another way to do it. And so I thought, well, let me see if I can do it a little differently. And before that, I thought right before I started the agency, I felt that I should do my own search because I felt like that kind of had to be resolved before I helped others. So I did that.
Yeah, it's interesting to this day. Anytime I talk about our agency to a prospective client, I always share that our agency was founded by an adoptee herself, because I think that it helps explain the values that we hold as an agency, because it's truly, been inspired by you and your experience. Um, Back then, do you feel there was still stigma against finding your birth parents? Like, do you feel like closed adoption was just so common that it was hard for people to even have conversations about openness?
Oh, the community at large was totally opposed to it. Lawyers, doing adoptions just said this will never work. Nobody's going to do this. I was asked to go on quite a few TV shows back then. We had panels, and when we started doing placements, we had adoptive parents on the panels. And so then, little by little, all of a sudden, everybody decided they would do open adoption because they found that that's what people really want, particularly pregnant women. They really want to know what's going to happen to their child and and have some input as to who is going to adopt.
Mm, absolutely. Do you feel like there was pushback? Like, was it hard for you in those early days?
I don't think it was hard. I just think people didn't believe that it would work until they saw that it was working.
Sure. Well, and we don't take it for granted. I mean, today it's hard to even find a closed adoption agency. And I just think that your ability to push through some of the hidden conversations that people didn't want to have helped pave the way for open relationships that we see today. That kind of brings me to Sierra. I want to bring her into the conversation as a birth mom, facing an unplanned pregnancy and coming to our agency. What did that mean for you to be able to know that you can have an open relationship with the adoptive family that you were choosing?
So it was very important for me because I always had this fear of not knowing what was going to happen to my baby, if I was never going to hear from my baby, know the well-being of my baby until they turned 18 and decided to reach out. So it was nice to know that I had the choice to have it open and still keep communication with not only my child, but their family as well. So I knew more about what was going on if it had been a closed adoption. And that gave me a very big peace of mind, just knowing that I had that option.
Well, and so you placed in 2016, which is crazy,
I
Sierra.
know.
Feel like that was yesterday. Um, since then, you have just been a huge advocate, within our community. You now serve as a board member. You're a participant of our monthly support group, and you've really helped mentor other women. Can you share with our audience what it has meant for you to use your personal experience to help other women who are facing unplanned pregnancies and trying to navigate what to do?
So for me, when I was going through my journey, we didn't have the support group. We started the year after I placed, and it was hard for me in my daily life, going through my daily life, and then also going through my adoption journey at the same time when I didn't have anybody in my corner besides the agency. And it was a lot on me trying to, I still parent, like I still have my 10-year-old now daughter. So I was parenting, I was still working, I was still being a daughter to my mother, and all while trying to figure out, hey, how do I do this adoption thing? How do I like how do I do this? So for me, it's like I know now from going through my experience, support is important. And I like being support for women who feel like they don't have that support, just so that they know they're not alone. Because that's a very scary feeling to feel like you're going through this big thing by yourself. And it's just, I like to give that peace of mind that no, you're not alone. I've been there. We're gonna get through it.
And I know, Sierra, we have spoken about this in the past that there's still a lot of stigma associated with being a birth mom. Now, you live a busy life, you work, you're parenting your daughter. Why do you come back and still, represent and participate in all of our adoptions from the heart, community things, including being a board member? I mean, it monopolizes a lot of your time. How does that connect to adoption advocacy and why you do all this?
Because at the end of the day, you guys helped me through a very, very hard situation. and also help give me more self-worth of myself. And I would love to be able to give that back to other women who were in the same spot as me, who didn't feel like they had a choice or who feel like they're just down on the ground. I like to be that, the hand reaching out, like, you're okay, let me help you up. And even if that takes out my time, like, it's still worth it for me because I'm helping other people and they're seeing this from me, a birth mom. I'm not any like special person. Like, I'm not no big celebrity. I'm a normal person. I went through the same experience and here's where I am. And that kind of helps them see, hey, I could get through this. She got through this. And I just like being that person to some people.
Well, and I know that when there were discussions happening of you participating in being a board member, I was just so honored to work for this agency that allowed for a birth mom to sit in that space because, our board is what helps, all of our policies, procedures, and you have a voice in what we do. And to me, that is super important in the bigger picture of our agency. So we are very proud to know that we have a birth mom like you who's able to be in our corner and help us in developing and growing as an organization.
Love you guys.
I'd like to bring Terry into the conversation. Terry, can you share a little bit about your journey? I have heard amazing things about you and just all you do. You're an adoptive parent through our agency and you started this amazing thrift store. So tell us a little bit about your background and what prompted you to want to continue with adoption advocacy.
So first of all, Sierra's a tough act to follow. That was beautiful. Um, after I have a 24-year-old son, and when my son was after he was born, a couple years after, I knew I couldn't have any more children. I always thought I was going to be the old lady in the shoe and have like kids spilling out of the shoe. So adoption just seemed like the right fit, and thank God my husband jumped on board with that. So I went to one meeting and there was a room full of people in that room with similar stories to mine who couldn't have kids and were trying everything. I never felt more comfortable in my life that this was the right decision. So I went with a friend who she also wound up adopting, and her daughter is now my goddaughter. And it was 10 months start to finish. We did all our paperwork, we went through the whole process. We just put our name out there and basically left it up to God. And the coolest thing of our adoption process was the day the phone call came in from our social worker from Adoptions from the Heart. It felt when she said, Rich, Terry, you have a baby girl. And it felt like just when the doctors told me I had a baby boy when I actually delivered Dan. So the whole process was so similar to a pregnancy, and it was just the most beautiful process in the world. And plus, I was in my same size jeans the next day, so it was perfect. It was great. Um, and it was just such a gift to us, and we were ready for it, and the whole process. And the best was the time I spent with the birth mother. Because of the open adoption part, I got to spend 3 hours hearing all about her life, finding out her favorite TV shows, hearing how she was a college student. She went to college on a basketball scholarship. My daughter Kat is the worst basketball player on the face of the earth. So the apple fell so far from that tree, but she has other talents, so it's good. And it was just great. We have never looked back from day one of going to that meeting and feeling so welcomed by Adoptions from the Heart. And all we wanted to do was someday be able to repay that in some way. And now with Heart and Soul, we're able to do that.
Tell us a little bit about your store and what you guys do over there.
So, interestingly enough, I adopted my daughter, Kat, and we brought her home on March 24th, 2005. 13 years later, my sister, Kristen, adopted a little girl, Nina, from Adoptions from the Heart. And amazingly enough, brought her home on March 24th, 2018. Two sisters, 13 years apart, with beautiful babies. And so one day, my sister and I were sitting watching TV together, which is really rare. She has 3 kids, I have 2, busy lives. and a TV show came on about a woman who went from foster to adoption, and somebody paid for her to be able to go from the foster to the adoption part. And in doing that, she decided to give back and open a closet in her garage where she sold clothes to make money to help people who wanted to foster and adopt. Kristen and I are sitting on the couch and we look at each other and we're like, we could do that. And then the next thing you know, we're like, no, we really could do that. So we started looking at what it would take to open up a nonprofit 501c3. And an article I read said it only takes 11 steps. And I was like, 11? How big could that be? Well, it was like 1A, 1B, 1C. It took a lot more than 11 steps. But the whole time, it just felt like we were being driven forward by the gifts that we were given. And then also there just, the support of parents who were very philanthropic, a brother who works also with nonprofit. Like we had this family surrounding us, and our store has taken off beyond belief. It's the most heartwarming thing. We're 100% donation, and our donations are amazing. And the fact that the community of Swarthmore, PA has just surrounded us, the stories that we hear, the people that come in, we have a wall where literally anybody who's been fostered or adopted who would like to, and only if they would like to, gets to sign a heart and stick it on a wall in our store. And every morning, Kristen and I, when we go in there, we literally look at that wall because that is the mission that drives us to do what we do. And the fact that we're $16,100 donated in our first year, 2024, and we're already $6,500 donated so far in 2025 is beyond belief. It's a mission that's much greater than just the two of us, but it's dedicated to Kat and Nina and the work from Adoptions from the Heart.
Why don't you tell everybody what's the name of your store and where
So
it is?
So it's called Heart and Sold. And the reason why, I'm so glad you asked, Maxine. Thank you. We started with the heart because you tell your child that she wasn't born in your belly, she was born in your heart. And then sold, we have a kind of a wicked sense of humor over here at the Crossan household. And so basically we told Kat that she was sold to us because we had to buy her, and she cost us a Cadillac Escalade, but that was fine. But we called it SOULD instead of SOLD. So my neighbor, who is like a third child to me, she's the one that came up with the name when we were talking about it. She said, just combine the two favorite things that you love to say to Kat, that she was born in your heart and she was sold to you. So that's how we came up with the name. It's in Swarthmore, PA, on a cute little street called Park Avenue. We're 14 Park Avenue, which sounds really fancy, but I'm right next to the laundromat on one side and the nail salon on the other, and I couldn't be happier. We are 800 square feet, so we're very small, but boy, you walk through those doors and you can feel what we're trying to build, and it's been beautiful.
I'm curious, Terry, what did it mean for you to have Adoptions from the Heart in your corner all these years, and then you kind of taking the baton and continuing with this adoption advocacy and opening your own store?
Very similar to what I was nodding a lot when Sierra was talking, because of the fact that that's always been, I've always wondered how to give back. It's, obviously going to events that Adoptions from the Heart had, but there was just always this thing in the back of my mind that I literally had to, be able. And the fact that we can team up with Adoptions from the Heart now, and not just from a monetary standpoint, the fact that we can promote you on our social media, on our Instagram and our Facebook. And so we can get that out there. And very similar to what Sierra's saying, you don't know who's scrolling through, who might stop on Heart and Sold and say, I could really use Adoptions from the Heart, or I could really use Fostering Hope or CASA or any of our mission matches. But the fact that we can give back monetarily, which is needed, you need it to run your programs, and then let you guys do your work. And then also from a social media standpoint, I just can't even imagine anything better. And Kristen feels the same way.
Well, we are very lucky to have you on our team, Terry, and just honored to hear your story. It's interesting. Last night, I was teaching an informational meeting for prospective adopted parents, and they were asking what sets your agency apart from others. And to hear you and Sierra share that you were clients of ours, but you want to give back and you want to kind of keep this going shows that it's not just that you used us for services and then closed the door. You continue to be huge advocates of AFTH and adoption in general, and it just makes us really proud as an agency to keep going. So
And
thank you.
compliments to you guys as well, because I'm sure this doesn't always happen where people feel so strongly that they have to give back because of what you did for us.
Well, I think it's all about investing in people and having them feel that they are heard and seen. And I think as staff here, we're constantly trying to do that and make sure that we provide the supportive services before, during, and after so that people can use us in whatever they're doing within the adoption triad. Right? We're not just a placing agency that places children for adoption. And in hearing your story, that reassures me that we are doing that. And I think we continue to strive with the goals that Maxine set when she started this agency, and we're all just proud to be a part of this community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let's bring Rosalind into the conversation. Rosalind, we've had so many recent experiences working together. Can you share with everybody a little bit about who you are and what inspired you with your advocacy within adoption and foster care?
Yeah, definitely. So I get both sides. I was adopted and I also, I guess you could say fostery. So I was in foster care at a very, very young age, little after 1 years old, so around a 2-year-old time frame. Not for very long. I was there with my mother at the time. She was very young, and I was there with one of my sisters as well. I ended up getting adopted after. And so I did split up from my biological family. I am one of 7. So that alone is something that drove my passion because as I got older, and I always knew I was adopted. So I think that's a gem that I had growing up. I never really had to wonder. I always knew I was adopted, didn't really know what that meant so much until I got older and the questions and light bulbs started going off. So, that connected me with the community, like, okay, I need to do something. And it started with myself because I could relate to both sides of foster care and being adopted.
And talk to us about why you wrote the book that you wrote and kind of what you do with the community now in your advocacy work for adoption.
Yeah. So, I wrote the book for one because I wanted to do something for myself. So, I'm thinking, what can I do? What can I do that's authentic, something for me? And, passion normally comes from something within something you can relate to. And that was it, being adopted and going through foster care. So I said, you know what? Let me write a book. And specifically a children's book. I feel like that age range is so precious. And for myself, when I started questioning certain things, I was on the younger side. So I said, let me, gear this towards children specifically, but all ages can relate to the book and to the topic. So the book was like a platform for me to also kind of get my foot in there to do something for the community, was writing this children's book.
And for those who haven't seen in the chat box, we've inputted the link to Rosalind's book if anyone wants to order it. We keep a copy in the office. It's very obviously, reading to kids and having them understand their identity is a big part of,
Yeah.
what we encourage at Adoptions from the Heart.
Yeah.
So for you, Rosalind, when you have community events, because you've done so much, our agency has participated in many of the platforms that you have been on. What is the biggest thing you're trying to stress to our community when you're talking about adoption? Like, what do you feel is still a stigma out there that you're trying to pull away from?
So there's two sides to it for myself and for my story. So adoption can have the stigma that life after is just terrible, it's miserable. And for myself in my story, I want to advocate like it doesn't always have to end up a story like that. I have a very positive, enlightening story. So I also want to share that to show that there's more sides to this. There's more layers to it. With that being said, so
That's great. And I see someone already ordered your book in the chat box.
oh, thank you. You'll definitely enjoy it. It's a good read.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think your values align with Adoptions from the Heart. Part of what you're saying is why we even developed Adoptions from the Heart TV was so that people could share their voice because there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that are still or were hush hush about adoption.
Yeah.
Birth mothers place their kids, we never hear from them again, right? That's kind of the stigma associated with adoption. Adoptees,
Exactly.
they struggle, right? That's not true for everybody. And I think that
Exactly.
that people feel comfortable sharing their story and sharing their experiences, and the more platforms that we can give folks, including, a children's book,
Right, right.
do with our advocacy and making sure that we fully express what adoption is in a positive light.
Yeah, I agree. Sharing your story. And also, like Sierra said, support. Life after. There's a lot that goes on after that process. So that was just like another thing that I wanted to do is just give some type of support, even if it's just an outlet, because a lot of my events are fun for the families, for everybody to enjoy. So, there's a lot of support that's needed for the adoptee, even the parents, So that's another thing that I tried to push out there as well.
I was going to say, I really like the emphasis that it benefits the adoptee because everybody thinks that it's benefiting mostly the birth parents because they have some controls. And the adoptive parents, obviously, because they get a child, but they don't stop to think how it's beneficial to the adoptee to
Mhm.
know, the circumstances of their placement and who their birth parents are. So it's
Agree.
also beneficial to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I completely agree, Maxine. I think that in counseling, when we get phone calls from folks who adoptees are, say, teenagers, often the ones who are struggling are the ones who don't have openness or had any sort of openness at any point. So to your point, I think the fact that we encourage it is not just for birth parents, but so that adoptees can have that information.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Roslyn.
Thank you.
Back to you, Maxine. So we are going to kind of shift gears just slightly in terms of Women's History Month and the idea of women building businesses around whatever they're passionate about. You gave us a great overview of why you started the agency back in '85. Since then, how do you feel our agency has shifted? Like from then to now, what do you see as the biggest differences in terms of our growth and development?
Well, first of all, adoption has changed drastically. It's not just the agency, it's just that all adoptions are very different. And you see TV shows with people finding their birth parents and vice versa. And it's just so much more accepted and understood. And, I think at first we did, not at first, but we did a lot of international adoption. And that was really great, although definitely wasn't open. But at least, you know, these children could come to the US and find good homes. But then over time, it's the emphasis was back on infant adoptions. And now we're starting to focus a lot on non-newborn adoptions, where families can adopt a child like age 1, 2. Sometimes women take their children home and were afraid to do adoption placement, but they realized that they just couldn't handle this. Maybe they also have two children at home, and the third is just too much. But for many reasons, they thought they would get support from their parents and the father of the child. And then it turns out, I'm not talking about financial support only, I'm talking about emotional support. Like, we'll help you, but then they don't. So I think that we really want women to know that there is an option that you can still consider open adoption and know how your child is doing.
Well, and to your point, Maxine, in talking about non-newborn placements, I think that is less of a stigma, so folks are more willing to inquire and learn about our program if they are struggling, trying to parent, let's just say, a 1-year-old. I think the fact that we have built the reputation that we have in the community where folks feel like they can call and it's a safe space where there's no judgment and they can just sit down and explore their options has led to more people embracing the idea of trying to get the support and navigate if adoption is the right plan.
Yes.
Well, thank you. When you hear stories, Maxine, from somebody like Terry or Sierra, I'm curious, like, do you feel like you have fulfilled what you wanted in starting this agency?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's just wonderful hearing them because you don't often just hear from the adoptee, like I said, and the birth parents. Most people never have spoken to them or known how they feel, except if they did their placement, but they don't know in general how somebody pregnant would feel about adoption.
Well, thank you. Let's take it back to Terry. Terry, as you hear these stories and you hear from Maxine about the transition, from Adoptions from the Heart back in '85 up until now, how do you feel about women taking what they're passionate about? For Maxine, obviously she was an adoptee herself. She started this organization. How do you feel about women having the ability to embrace whatever it is that they're dedicated to in creating some sort of business or organization or, whatever? How do you feel about that? And based off of your experience too?
I gotta be honest, one word, power. Truly, it is, we all have the power. I look at the people that are, right in front of me on this panel. It's just having the power to say yes to things, to take and accept challenges, and you also have to think about what you produce with that power. Like you look at Maxine, without her, our family wouldn't be complete, neither mine nor my sisters. And that's such a beautiful thing. And, without somebody like Sierra, who just is so brave and strong, and Rosalind the same way, to tell their stories. It's just, I love the fact that we said yes. My sister and I said yes to creating this store because, as I said, it's so much more than that 800 square feet of space. People come in. I tell my story about adopting Kat so often and how she's a part of my family. And then Julie picked it up and put it on a blog in November where my daughter Kat went in and spoke with Julie for National Adoption Month. And I literally couldn't watch the blog until everybody went to bed because seeing my then 19-year-old speak so positively about the adoptive process, speak about the fact that she never felt it to be anything but a part of our family, that it was never a secret. She told the story about how she used to say when she was in school, starting in first grade, they would say, "What's unique about you?" And she would say that I'm adopted. She said by the time she got to third grade, all the kids were like, "We know that. It's not a big deal." So just all those stories and the fact that I get to tell them in the store, which Kristen and I hope then encourages people to feel like there is a path for them if they want, that there are more children out there for both fostering and adoption. So it's having this power of our voice, of our clothes, our household items, our jewelry, everything, to put money behind it. And then it's such a great power. It's a positive power, and it just seems to keep spreading. So I feel like I feel stronger every day.
Terry, you're so inspiring. You make me want to start something.
Come on over, hang out with us.
I want to bring Rosalind back to the conversation of what advice you would have for women who play some part in the adoption triad that may be considering starting something, whether it's writing a book, opening a store, opening an agency like Maxine did. What advice would you give about having the courage to take that leap?
I would say just do it. You're gonna have a ton of support. Because when I did it, when I wrote the book, I was just like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just gonna do it. And then, finding you guys was a true blessing because I reached out to a lot of agencies, to support me on it when I had published the book. And you guys just have been so good to me. And the relationship since 2022, have been very supportive. So whatever it is, go to the drawing boards and just throw it all on there. And something's gonna stick. And because it's coming from the heart, it's gonna be genuine. So just do it. Little traction, tiny but mighty, because that's how I feel. Even doing my events and stuff, one event I might have 5 people, the next I might have 30. But honestly, if just one person gets to benefit from it, as I've learned doing the past events that I've done, it's successful for me.
And you never know who's listening, right? It
Exactly.
somebody that comes to an event and knows somebody that really needs the supportive
Yeah.
services, and you have drastically changed their life by being where you're at. For you, Rosalind, whenever I attend one of your events, I always say you're very genuine. Your story is very real and authentic, and like who you are comes through, and it makes it feel more real in whatever we're talking about, So
Mhm.
we
Thank you.
Hey, Sierra, let's bring you back in. Hearing from all these wonderful women who have, paved the way for all the great things in life, does it inspire you at all to want to do something with what you've been through, and what does the future look like for you?
Oh, of course. Go honestly, the last event that I did with Roslyn, and I saw how many people came, and it was just like it felt like a family event and not like a fundraiser event. I was like, oh my gosh, she has it's so much love in this room. And it was all for her and for the event and for what was going on with us. And it was so inspiring for me. I have been in the works of things, but life is life thing. But it was truly amazing. And then obviously seeing Maxine and everything that's been going on since I've been around, it's it's very empowering, I will say, for me, because I see that these women, just like me, they just had a thought, they went for it, they put their hearts and soul into it, and here they are. Like being on the panel with these women, it gives me so much strength and hope that whatever I do choose to do in the future, I can do it. And that's more than I can say for before I had this type of support and community where I always had that big doubt. Like I still do have my doubts. I'm a human. But now I can see that there's a positive outcome at the end of the tunnel, which is a very, very more powerful feeling than before.
Well, and Sierra, when I met you in 2016, you are a very different woman. Still had the same smile, but a very different. And the idea of birth parents not having a voice was just not good enough. And I know that when you and I sat down and we talked about creating like a support group so that women can lean on each other, I feel like that was the start of us trying to open up these boxes of women wanting to share. And so to hear from a birth mom who has placed a child for adoption, even in the audience setting tonight, for a lot of people is inspiring because 15, 25, 35 years ago, people just didn't talk about this, right? You may have heard from an adoptive parent or even an adoptee, but birth parents didn't necessarily share their story or have enough platforms to share their story. So I will speak on behalf of the audience in saying that we continue to be so grateful for you to be so vulnerable because it's not all sunshine and rainbows all the time for you, right? There are still
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I always, if anybody shows any type of interest, I tell my story just because, like you said, we don't we don't get our voice enlightened, I guess. Like we don't get to tell our story. It's kind of just, hey, here's what happened, and then that's it. I tell my story when I get the chance from when I was pregnant till after, till even up until now, because people really kind of forget about us parents, the all the birth parents, that we just kind of disappear because we go back into society and then it's kind of like, hey, we're just regular people again. Like, no, I placed my son in 2016. I'm still going through my adoption journey. I'm still growing, still learning. And I like to tell people that, like, hey, I'm still here. I'm still going. and here's the things that I do. Here's the things that I went through.
Well, thank you, Sierra.
Um,
Okay, guys, for our last topic, we're going to discuss empowering women in adoption. Maxine, can you chat with everybody about the importance within our agency of giving women options when we first meet them? You know, the idea of options counseling and not pressuring women when they first come to us to decide what they want, and why you feel that's valuable to the bigger picture of what we do as an agency.
I don't think people really believe that we do that. I think they think we just tell them about adoption and that's it. And that's why it's up to us to educate any like places that come across women that are considering this, whether it's hospitals, whether it's urgent care centers or drug rehab places. They have to know that we don't try and pressure people to do adoption. We tell these women, it's up to you. And, you know, you may not be ready to do it now. You may want to do it later. It seems like we're getting a lot of emergency placements, which is kind of interesting. Before, it was always they would call at like 5 months. They were 5 months pregnant, and they would want to meet the family, and they would see the family a few times. And that was great. It's just that it's very different now, sort of like it's an emergency. They go and have a baby and then have to figure out what to do, which is hard on them. I think that's very difficult, but that's what we're seeing. So,
Well, and the reality is, it's not easy facing an unplanned pregnancy, specifically as a woman, right? And we live in a world today that is making it even more challenging, excuse me, to navigate next steps. And I would imagine that 30, 40 years ago, if you were a woman pregnant, you felt this pressure of you should just parent your child, right? Or you should just make it work and, you know, move in with your family and do what you got to do. But fast forward to today, there's so many more options that we try to encourage women to really sit down and navigate what's right for you, not what's right for everybody else, but what's right for you and your child.
well, when I was younger, when like just out of high school, I had friends that had abortions or adoption. But they didn't just, it's not a planned adoption. It was like they would be sent away to some home. And it was a secret. Don't tell anybody you were pregnant because you're not married. And so it was very, very different. And they had no options. Lots of times they never even got to see their baby, which is heartbreaking. And I think it must still affect them a lot that they don't know what ever happened. Is their child alive or how are they doing? So giving them options is so important, and because then they know this is their decision, not somebody else's. I remember when I worked in public children and youth, we would sit around a table and we would say, okay, we have this child and these are the families, so which family should we pick? And we just pick a family. So it's so different now.
It is. And people ask me all the time, why do you work for Adoptions from the Heart? You know, I've been here 13 years. What do you love about your job? And my favorite part to this job is empowering women, right? So when I sit down with a woman who's scared, facing an unplanned pregnancy, or even just gave birth at the hospital, my goal is to not have her place that child for adoption. My goal is to have her figure out what's right for her and her kiddo. And I think that we want people to know that they can call us and we will sit down with them and help them in figuring out what's best for them. So a woman who decides to parent or, you know, places child within her family, as long as she knows that that's what's right, that's what we support. And we want people to realize that when they call us, that's the type of service you're getting.
I think we all also follow up sometimes. If someone takes their child home and doesn't place it, we, you know, call them. How are you doing? Is everything okay? Do you need referrals for anything?
Absolutely. Thank you, Maxine.
Mhm.
Hey, Terry, can you share with folks what your suggestion or advice would be for women who want to become advocates within the adoption community and just, you know, in general, the idea of women empowerment and these conversations that we're having?
Actually, these conversations are great. You know, the first question that came to mind, and maybe you and or Maxine can answer it, is, you know, the difference in adoption now is social media. Because I think, you know, back when I was adopting, we didn't have the social media wasn't as big as it was. Cat's 20 and 20 years has made all the difference in the world. So we were literally picked out of a folder of pictures. We, you know, put pictures together and, you know, and the birth mom went through and she thankfully picked us. Now I can't even imagine how you see so many things in social media and the people that follow us that are different adoption organizations or individual adoptees see that we're involved with adoption and follow us on Instagram. So, you know, how that must have changed. But, you know, I would say mine and my sister's message stays the same with regard to empowering. We believe so strongly that the minute a child comes into your life, that child is part of your family. And so, you know, whether it would be foster or it would be adoption, that child is yours for whatever length of time you are blessed with keeping them. So, you know, we just feel very strongly that we can empower people to realize that you can advocate for every child finding a home, every child finding somebody who can love them, and we're going to support that as much as we can, which is why we support both foster and adoptive services throughout Delaware County, because at the end of the day, every child, every birth mom deserves dignity. Every child deserves dignity. So we believe very strongly in providing that kind of hope to both birth moms through our work with you guys, through foster children, through our other mission matches, and then through the adoptive process. So we feel very strong about that mission.
Well, and again, it's about education and making sure that folks are fully informed, right? That's one of
Yes.
the goals whenever we're doing outreach in the community and trying to have people understand the services we provide is that we're not here to push anything on anybody. It's making sure that people fully understand what all of their options are, you know, whether it's foster care, parenting, adoption, abortion, whatever it might be, understanding what that will look like and then weighing the pros and cons of each decision or each option rather.
You are so correct. So my in my other life, I'm a dietitian, and I want people to know what the truth is with regard to different ways of eating and healthy eating and everything. And I feel like it's the same exact thing with foster and adoption. There are so much misinformation out there, but there's so many people that they can talk to for the right story. And so we really try, we keep information on all our mission matches right at the front of our counter because we want the right people to be asked the right questions. And when people ask us, we are not experts. We're adoptive moms, but we now have people we can refer them to. And that has been, I've had people who have asked to meet with me privately. I went out for coffee with a woman who said, I would love to foster and adopt. And I'm able to give her the names and numbers of people to reach out to. So I think getting the right information out there and dispelling the misinformation is very much the word empowering as you have used is absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think making sure that people know who they can turn to in those moments,
Yes.
right? To
Yes.
your point. And I think that when we go out there in the community, it's just having people recognize what type of agency we are, the values we hold, and the services we provide. I was counseling a mom at the hospital a few weeks ago that was considering adoption. She had just given birth, and you know, it took quite some time to talk through the pros and cons. And she fully understood what adoption would bring to the table, and she knew that placing that child for adoption would allow for him to have a great life, right? But after good conversation and really laying out the reality of what parenting would look like versus placing, she ended up deciding to parent and she took that baby home and she's happy, right? And for me, that's a win because she understood all of her options and she felt empowered enough to make the right decision for her child and parent that child. And whether you choose adoption or choose parenting, you are still a good mom, right?
Right.
Sierra
Absolutely.
Sierra is one of the most just inspiring, courageous, selfless individuals you could ever meet. And I hope everyone on this call gets to meet Sierra one day in person because while she's been through a lot, she has done so much and to sacrifice for the child that she's parenting and the child that she placed is something that we should really respect and honor and talk about in this community because it's hard. It's hard for women today to make good decisions for themselves and their families. And we should respect when they make the right choice for them and their kiddos.
Talk about empowering. The other thing I would say that we also, also that we're providing, which I'm hearing coming from all of you, and Rosalind, to your point, hope. I feel like through Rosalind, your book, which I can't wait to read, and through Sierra, through it, and Maxine, hope. And when people come into our store and they hear my story, I was 40 years of age when Cap came to us, and my husband was 45. And to have people come who say, oh, adoption, oh, but you got to be young. And I'm like, well, I am young. I was 40. That is young. I'm now 60. That's young. So to give people hope. And I hope that we can continue in our store and through the people we meet to give hope, that there are options and that there is a way to figure out what is the right path forward. So again, that's more empowering.
I love it. I love this. And I love being able to connect with an adopted parent through our agency from years ago who still holds the same ethics and values as we do today, because that's just what makes Adoptions from the Heart so unique and makes me proud to work for this agency. So thank you, Terry.
Oh, you're welcome.
Speaking of Rosalind, we must have put you there on purpose, Terry, to intro her in. Terry, so excuse me, Rosalind. So what do you want folks to know about your book and how it can inspire women to move forward, and especially adoptees in trying to feel empowered and feel good? What would you say to that?
Yeah, so I will say like you mentioned, the book is well-rounded for all involved in the process, for the adoptee, the foster parent, and even the birth parents as well. I like to think of the book as like a social emotional book. It can also be used as an icebreaker book for a family, because it touches on real life feelings that a child might go through, whether they're adopted, whether they're still in foster care, whether they're a stepchild. It really blends all the units together. And the title in itself, I Am Precious, I Am Loved, it's just that. I just want that child to know that, like, no matter what their situation is or, how they were placed in their family, even if they weren't placed, even if it's their birth parent, that at the end of the day, you are precious, you are still loved the same, no matter how that was put together. So yeah, it's a great family book. It's an easy read, and like I said, with it being an icebreaker, it can be a book used for conversation. When I wrote the book, it was because I had reached a moment in my life when I was when I was younger. I was in elementary age, and I had an identity crisis because I mentioned I knew I was adopted, but it's still like you lose a piece of you because there's a lot that you don't know, even though you have a new family. And I just felt a lot of different emotions. And in this book, it'll express that. It'll express all different emotions that a child might go through. But at the end of the day, it still gets tied back together with love. The love from your mom baking cookies, which is an example in my book, things that happen that you do with your parents naturally that will bring you together. So like all the ladies mentioned prior to, a woman's voice, we can be heard today, definitely. It's a lot of white noise, but our voices are strong. Advocate for yourself, ask questions, so you can do what's best for yourself and not what somebody else might be telling you or what might be going on in society, but really center yourself for whatever choices you're going to make.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We are going to open it up to questions, but before we do, I just want to ask Rosalind, is there any final thoughts that you want to give? Anything else that you want people to know about your story or adoption in general?
Yeah, so I'll just give a little quick overview on my story. Like I mentioned, I was placed in foster care and then I was adopted. I ended up finding my birth family on Facebook when I was 17 years old. So something beautiful that my foster family created for me, which ironically, they wanted to actually adopt me. They wanted to keep me. My foster family wanted to keep me, but it didn't work out like that. Um, but they created a book for me. It was a little storybook. So I have a book that I was raised with, and it has pictures and a little storyline and names and everything. Um, and just one day I was just like, man, like I started wondering because I have siblings out there, and I was just like, let me just type one of their names in, and I did, and it was a match on Facebook. Um, and that like set it off. After that, I flew out. My roots are in Arkansas. Um, I was born in Tacoma, Washington. Here in Delaware. Yeah, so I flew out to Arkansas and I met my siblings and my mother. And till this day, I have one sibling, one sister that I haven't physically been able to meet. Like I said, it's one out of seven, but we talk. So that's my little story with that. But yeah, I just want to say, Sierra, call me, girl, because I'm here to support you. I love that. So definitely call me so we can do some things. But everything tonight was amazing. I love hearing about Terry's store and meeting Maxine. I would love to meet you one day. But yeah.
That'd be great.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Maxine, any final thoughts from you or anything else you want our audience to know?
Um, no, I mean, I think everybody said what they had to say and showed that it was very beneficial. Um, and when you asked me what it was like in the beginning, I remember I started the agency in my basement and I had a couple come in. They were a very upper middle class couple. And I heard them when they were walking out said, "We'll never get a kid from here." And they ended up adopting two. One and then another one years later. So, I can understand why they said that because we were just starting. I think I had one social worker and myself, and I did everything. And
Well, 40 years later, Maxine, it's still working. It's still working. People are still calling us. And I think that the belief that open adoption truly works is still strong today. And many people owe their family building to you and all that you accomplished, and you're paving the way for what we have today. So thank you.
thank you.
Terry, any final thoughts from you on just these conversations and empowerment and, women doing what they have to do and jumping right in?
Well, first of all, great questions, Amanda. Excellent questions. But I did want to say I'm so glad that you circled back around when you talked about how do you advocate, money talks. And I will say the best way that we're going to be able to empower and move our mission forward is by touting the fact that two sisters who finished their families thanks to Adoptions from the Heart, 800 square foot store with pretty expensive rent, were able to donate $16,100 in 1 year. If that doesn't talk about, being surrounded by community, fulfilling dreams. We just had our fashion show. It raised $6,000, which was absolutely amazing. And I remember at the end, the final comment I made when I thanked everybody who helped with the day and the 125 plus people who came and supported us as attendees. The thing I said is dreams can come true. And I truly believe that. And I feel like it's been a lifetime of dreams and, we're still living it. So our goal is $25,000 this year with Adoptions from the Heart, getting a fourth of that at least. And I feel like that is advocacy when you can put money behind your project.
Well, Terry, your 800 square foot store reminds me of Maxine's basement when she first started. So maybe 40 years from now, we'll be having a different conversation of just how successful your store has been, and we're just again honored to have you be a part of our community. This is my first time actually meeting you, not in person, but and I want to just learn more about you. I want to come to your store, and I appreciate you, and we
Uh,
value having you be a part of this. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And then finally, Sierra, we will kind of leave off with you sharing any final thoughts or anything else that you want folks to know about being a birth mom, your experience with your advocacy work, and just, women empowerment in general.
So my main thing when I do, because again, I mentor women that may be thinking about adoption at all. One thing that I say to them, follow your heart, stop all the noise from outside, listen to yourself. You know what is the best choice for you, and you need to move on that. Because I feel like now we get a lot of other people telling us what's the best thing for us, and we don't listen to ourselves when we ask ourselves that question. So I say this in any capacity on anything you're doing, starting a business, job, life. You know what's best for you. Do what's best for you. Don't let the outside opinions become your own opinion.
Well, and Sierra, I'll say the same thing to you. I know you have dreams and things that you want to do related to adoption, and we are all in your corner supporting you in any way that we can. So just go out there and rock it, and you can do this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to open it up to the audience. Does anybody have questions, responses, comments, any feedback for our guest speakers? You can feel free to unmute yourself, or you can put a comment, or a response in the chat box. I see a lot of folks in the chat box just thanking our guest panelists for their sharing their stories. Again, we don't ever want to take for granted the vulnerability of our guest speakers in sharing their stories. We know how meaningful it is. We have a lot of prospective adoptive parents on the call who are looking to build their family, and I know hearing stories from folks within the adoption triad is extremely helpful. Anybody want to share? Anybody want to comment or just thank any of our guest panelists? And if not, that's okay too. Okay.
Amanda, I just wanted to thank you. We've thanked the panelists and we appreciate everything they share, but you have been at the agency and really have helped transform it. I know your discussions with Sierra about having support for expecting parents, you have continued to embody the seed that Maxine planted many years ago, right? It's like having another generation of people who are focused on providing and empowering women through all of their options. And so a huge thank you to you. Also, we know you get calls in the middle of the night. We know you're working all the time on the weekends. And so all of our social workers have really been integral in continuing that mission and making sure that in all the noise that's happening out there, especially now, that they're really able to know that adoptions from the heart will not pressure. It really is about options and it really is about empowering. And it's making the connections, not just to make a placement happen, but actually creating a family through that as well. So thank you to you.
Well, thank you, Christy. In hearing people's stories, I have to say, you're good at something when you believe in it and it becomes not work to you, right? So obviously this is my job, but I live and breathe adoption and this agency and birth mothers. And I think in hearing from Rosalind, Sierra, Maxine, and Terry, you're good at what you all do because you believe in it and it's your heart, truly. I mean, Maxine, you started this from your own experience. Terry, you adopted through our agency. Rosalind, your experience as an adoptee. Sierra as a birth mother. Like, you're good at what you do when you believe in it, and it's no longer a job when you're passionate about it. And I think that's the goal here at Adoptions from the Heart, is to have people be on our team that are truly dedicated to the cause of what we're trying to accomplish. I think Deborah has a question. You can unmute yourself, Deborah.
Well, not a question, but I wanted to tell you how much I thoroughly enjoyed this. I know Rosalind personally, so hearing her story was just give me a little more insight into her. My family, we were a foster family. So in Brooklyn, my mom, my sisters, my brothers, and our whole household, we took care of foster children, and it was very really it was enjoyable, and it was good to be able to help them move. We had autistic children, children we taught how to read, but it just helped me to see how we did it as a family. And just this platform is a family, and it makes the dream work when everybody can encourage each other. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Deborah. We appreciate that. And Rosalind's amazing. We love hearing her story. And you always learn something new every time she shares. Anybody else before we conclude?
Can I jump on the Amanda thank you train?
Yes, please. Love the thank you train.
I do want to thank you so, so, so much because just like you said, when you met me in 2016 when I was pregnant with my son, totally different woman. And had you not planted those seeds in me and helped me get to where you knew I could be and where I knew I could be, I would not be here. I would not be this happy person that I am with this genuine smile on my face now. You helped me get here, and I really do appreciate and love you for that, as well as the rest of the Adoption from the Heart community, because I gained sisters, I gained friends, and it's just been so healing for me. And I really want y'all to know I appreciate y'all from the bottom of my heart.
Well, now that I'm about to have a tear, thank you, Sierra. We appreciate you and thank you for sharing that. You know how much you mean to me, and that was kind of you. Thank you. Okay, guys. Well, thank you, everyone. We are going to announce the lucky raffle winner tonight. Let's see. I got a text message of who it is. Amy Mendelson, congratulations. You have won the $50 Amazon gift card. We appreciate everybody donating to this wonderful cause. Amy, we will be in contact with you to give you your wonderful prize. So it looks like we have raised about $255. So again, thank you guys. Every little bit helps. All of these donations will be going right into AFTH programs and services. So thank you everyone for coming out tonight. This was an incredible evening full of amazing stories and accomplishments. We truly appreciate these conversations and the endless support that you all have for Adoptions from the Heart. We would not be who we are without the clients that we serve, and we feel fortunate enough to have you all be a part of our community. Please make sure you subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts to hear important and resourceful topics related to adoption. You can continue to watch amazing adoption experiences on Adoptions from the Heart TV episodes. These are broadcasted weekly on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. Please make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to keep up to date with more of our events and fundraisers. April 26th, we are hosting our Find Their Footing Festival and 5K at Rose Tree Park in Media, Pennsylvania. So if you are around, please join us. We will be having a Dashing Through the Decades 5K to celebrate Adoptions from the Heart's 40th year anniversary. The festival will also continue with music, food trucks, craft vendors, and more, and we hope to see you there. Our Pittsburgh and our Central PA office is hosting their spring hangouts on April 26th. If you are interested, feel free to call your local office. RSVPs must be in by April 22nd. And then lastly, we do have our annual AFTH picnic on June 8th. For those who don't know, this is one of our biggest events for the year where we have tons of families come back to celebrate adoption. We have many birth parent and adoptive parent reunions at these picnics, and we have all of our AFTH staff there to show their love and support to our community. If you found tonight's presentation to be powerful, please make sure to check us out on more of our upcoming supportive services and resources at Adoptions from the Heart. We are always adding more online webinars, which provide education on various adoption-related topics. I also want to make mention that we have various support groups here at Adoptions from the Heart, including adoptive parent support groups and birth parent support groups. Feel free to reach out to your local office to attend one of these great sessions. Okay, everybody, that is a wrap. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate your support at these Heart to Heart series. Best wishes to you and your families. And on behalf of Adoptions from the Heart, thank you for all of your support. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Can't wait to meet you in person.
I just love you, Terry. I can't wait to meet you either.
Did such a great job.